Pittsburgh Steelers fans, what's going on? This is Jeff Hartman, editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, here with you for another episode of the BTSC flagship podcast. The Standard is the Standard. Joining me, as always, my co-host Lance Williams. Lance, how's it going?
Awesome, Jeff. How are you? Hopefully, you had a fantastic Father's Day. I'm trying to
Nice
put
to hear.
my terrible Steelers number one dad, terrible towel. So that's how my day's gone. Got the fantastic mug earlier today, Steeler dad mug.
Now, is that Terrible Town new for you, or is that something you've had?
No, this is a fresh one from today.
Ah, very
It's a
nice.
fresh one from today. So big up to my children for hooking me up with the nice terrible towel. This one is like nice and soft and kind of lush. So I've been kind of just walking around with it all day, trying to get some Steelers suerte, some Steeler
Absolutely.
luck.
Now we are going to talk. Well, we'll talk about Father's Day in a little bit, but happy Father's Day to anyone out there that might be listening. Since 99, I feel like 99% of our audience is the male variety. If you're a father out there, or if you are around your father, make sure you wish them a happy Father's Day. Now let's get right into the news. If you looked at the title of this episode, it said over the course of, not so much rookie mini camp because that's a different beast altogether in terms of the players attending. But really, when you look at the OTAs, phase 3, and then the mandatory mini camp that wrapped up last week, there's a lot of talk about, the Cleveland Browns and how they're the favorites in the AFC North. And some are saying that the Baltimore Ravens are being number 2 and that the Steelers are like the third best team in the division. And we're not even talking about the conference. We're not talking about, the overall schematics of the NFL and favorites to win the Super Bowl or anything like that. We're talking about just the division. And so everyone's saying underdogs, 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 underdogs. And the players, when you hear the responses to this, they fall under one of two different sides of this fence in this debate. The one side is we understand what people are saying. This is what Joe Hayden is saying. We understand what people are saying. We hear it. We understand that absolutely we are considered underdogs. So what we're going to do is we're going to cling to it and we're going to say, hey, you think we're underdogs? That's fine. We're going to play that to our strengths. Maybe a la the 2017 Philadelphia Eagles. If you remember, Carson Wentz got hurt. They were wearing the dog masks on the field, all that stuff. Joe Hayden and a couple others said, let's cling to it. Now, then you have Ben Roethlisberger. Ben Roethlisberger, on the other hand, was asked the same exact question. What do you think about being construed or viewed as underdogs? And he said, look, people can say what they want, but we're still the Pittsburgh Steelers. We still have 6 Super Bowls. We haven't been to the big dance in a long time, but we have faith in each other. We have faith in our teammates, and we have all the confidence in the world. Now, Lance, my question for you is, which side of the fence do you reside? Are you
Well, let
someone
me
that
just
think? Well,
well, let,
you think this is something that they should cling to, or should they just say like Ben Roethlisberger said? You know what? We're still the Steelers.
let me give you my long. Well, it's not going to be a long-winded answer, but let me give you my answer really quickly in two pretty quick points. First, to Ben Roethlisberger's comments, saying we're the Pittsburgh Steelers, I don't know how much that means anymore when the Patriots have dominated the NFL for the last 15 years. So it might mean more if you say we're the New England Patriots. And I know that's going to piss everyone off.
Well,
Well,
hold on. Before you go any further, not many teams have, outside of the Patriots, that team up north, as we call them, not
yes.
many teams have had the amount of success, at least from a win-loss standpoint, as the Steelers in the past decade.
Come on, man. This is
Maybe the
Pittsburgh.
Chiefs.
We don't count wins losses.
I know, but
I
I'm
mean,
just okay. Just
so come on. So if this were Tom Brady taking that sentiment and he said we're the Patriots, I fully believe what he was saying. But to Ben's point, they are the Steelers. It is the AFC North. And let me just break that down really quickly. You have Baker Mayfield, a second-year quarterback in Cleveland, in an organization that hasn't done diddly since people started saying diddly. And he talks too much anyway. He almost got beat up by some teammates last week for messing around and having comments about Duke Johnson's money. They took him behind the woodshed and had to work it out. He talks too much. Then you got Lamar Jackson, who couldn't hit the side of a barn with a football. Then it's the Bungles. Then it's the Bungles, man. So you know what it is. That's what Ben is saying, but he can't say it as eloquently as I. He's saying, look, man, those teams ain't won, especially Cleveland. The Bungles suck, and the Browns, they the Browns. The Ravens, they got an option quarterback. They're running the veer. That's not going to work. We're still the Steelers. Give us the division. We coming to take it.
I guess, yeah, I see what you're saying there with Roethlisberger. For me, though, I fall more on Joe Hayden's side of the thing. If people don't, if hey, everyone, Maurice Jones-Drew goes on NFL Network and he's listing wins losses for the upcoming year, and he looks at the Steelers schedule and predicts them to be 7-9, 7-9 Lance. I'm the Steelers. I'm like, yes, everyone agree with him. Because let's just keep adding bulletin board material. Because if I'm Mike Tomlin and I'm in meeting rooms with my team, I'm bringing up all this stuff, at least in training camp, at least at the beginning of the year, to get them motivated and fired up. Not that they should need motivation, but we know what that's like, Lance. We both coached. And so I would be like, look, this is what this guy's saying. No one believes in us. They think Antonio Brown's gone. Our offense is awful. They think Le'Veon Bell's gone. We don't have capable backs that can handle the job, even though they proved it last year. They say our defense is awful. They think that Steven Nelson's overrated. I could go on and on. And if I'm Tomlin, I'm listing every single one of those bullet points to get them fired up, to rally the troops. And maybe that's just me because I was that kind of coach. I was the kind of coach that would look in the newspaper and find that quote, and I would take it and I would copy and paste it into a Word document and blow it up really big. And I would slap that sucker on the locker room door so that every single player that walked in that door saw it and said, oh, really? They said what? And it got the guys fired up, and it worked.
Yeah, I don't doubt that. I mean, I don't doubt that. That's great sense of motivation. If you want to post anything in that locker room, you should post the 6 teams that made the playoffs from the AFC and how they weren't listed in it. That should be the motivation if they want to be motivated about something. Forget what the rest of those teams say. I mean, again, Lamar Jackson, that's Remember the Titans 2000 Veer offense. Come on, man. This ain't Friday Night Lights.
Sunshine.
Baker Mayfield thinks this is Friday Night Lights and he pisses people off every other week. Nobody even knows who the Bengals coach is. They stink. Excuse me, Bungles. Let me get that right. Bungles. I mean, they stink. I get where Ben is coming, but I also get where Hayden is coming. I mean, guys are motivated differently. Some guys, I would be stroking both fires. Yeah. I'd be stroking both fires. I'm throwing logs into both stacks, whatever gets guys motivated. But I would have the standard is not 9-7. That might be my theme. That might be my theme that I put on the locker room. Obviously, the standard is not 9-7.
Yeah, and because that 9-6-1 last year felt like 9-7. That tie in week 1 felt like a loss. You could have that on a shirt. The standard is not 9-6-1.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is not the standard.
But I mean, I think the funny thing is some people, when I say people, I'm talking about fans, are constantly saying like, well, it doesn't matter. These guys listen to this stuff. They hear what people are saying. They see what writers are writing. I've had actual Pittsburgh Steelers email a writer of mine literally saying, how dare you put this out there about me? And that player is still on the Steelers right now.
Nice.
And I'll give you a hint. He's an outside linebacker not named TJ Watt.
Oh, Dud.
Yes.
Dud got sensitive?
He got real sensitive.
Nice.
I mean, he was like, he even told the writer to come down to the UPMC Rooney sports complex to talk about it. So I'm not naive enough to say that these players don't read websites like Behind the Steel Curtain. I know for a fact that people do. We had an interview with Charlie Batch a couple years ago. One of my writers was able to track him down, and he said that absolutely they read BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. And that doesn't mean that they gush over every word of every article, but they pay attention on Twitter to see that what's going on. I know several players follow us on Twitter. So, yeah, they read, they hear this stuff, they see what people are talking about. So I'm not going to believe the whole, well, we don't listen to that stuff. Yes, you do. Yes,
maybe they leave me alone because I'm on the West Coast. They know they can't get to me, I guess.
Uh, I don't know what it is. Well, probably because if they're going to do something, it's probably just going to be read something. They're probably not going to listen to a podcast, so that wouldn't be shocked.
Nice
Um,
grades though. Oh man, they wanted that work. I need that 5 minutes, man. I need 5 minutes with you.
yeah.
I need 5 minutes. We need to discuss that.
Oh, I
We
saw
need
that video. So okay, so we both see that there's benefits of this underdog, mentality, so to speak. But it's one of those situations where it doesn't really matter which side you reside on. Now, switching gears a little bit here, I looked at the calendar and they're about 40 days now away from training camp, and every now and then there are players that might want a new contract that all of a sudden a team says we're not going to be able to get a deal done, and so they cut ties with them and they'll release them, and then they're free game. Now on a waiver wire, the Steelers would be around middle of the pack because if someone's on the waiver wire, obviously you put in a waiver claim for them, and it goes down from the worst team last year to the best in terms of who is able to actually get that player. Lance, this isn't about specific players, but if there was a position that you are saying this is the position that if let's say all these different positions have a player come available, which is a really crazy scenario, but still it's what we're going to talk about. What would be the most paramount position for you, the biggest position of need that you would want to add to in free agency?
because I've done two pods on it. On the offensive side of football, I would say tight end. I think they need a veteran tight end behind Vance McDonald, and I think they need a safety. I think they need a veteran safety behind the fourth year and a second year player. They need some more depth at that position because behind the two starting safeties, you really don't have depth, at the quality depth, I should say, at that position. So it'd definitely be tight end and safety for me.
Which one trumps the other? You can only choose one.
I'm going to say tight end.
Really?
I'm gonna, it's funny. Like I typically, as an older dude, Steelers, steel curtain defense, all that good stuff. We know defense wins championships. Still to me, the number one priority in his team is replacing the 15 touchdowns. So you have to bring in depth to be able to do that. So you always got to have quality playmakers for Ben because they got to replace those 15 touchdowns. That's 3.5 points per game. So I'd lean to the offensive side of football.
Okay. It's tough. I definitely agree that it's between those two positions, tight end and safety, but picking between the two is really difficult. Um, I think I would go with tight end as well, just because I feel like it's safety. They have more options, even if it's a younger player like Marcus Allen. At tight end, the cabinet is literally bare. I mean, it's Vance McDonald, Xavier Grimble, which no one that I talk to who is in their right mind is absolutely just super pumped about. And Mark Gentry, the rookie from Michigan, like that's it. That's it. I actually expect them to add a tight end somehow before the season starts. I don't think it's going to be a high profile player, but I expect them to still make a move at the position. There's no way, in my opinion, that they can just, yeah, we're good. But I said that last year about outside linebacker. There's no way they're going to just run with three. And there we were, Anthony Chickalo, the only backup to Bud Dupree and TJ Watt. So would you say that I guess would you say that do you think they'll make moves? Because they've made a lot of moves recently in the past few years, right before the season. When you think about Joe Hayden, you think about Vance McDonald as probably the most current examples. Do you think that they're still looking for a move to make, or do you think what they have is what they have?
I think they'll make a move. I think they're going to aggressively look for it. I think when you have a quarterback that's 37, 38 on his last deal with about 3 to 4 years left. I mean, you just don't know how long that guy is going to be good. You don't want to be rolling the dice with a quarterback that's in his 40s. So I think it's go mode. I think they have to be really aggressive. Now, I'm not saying you blow up your whole entire plan, but I think you should alter it in a sense that you have to. There is more urgency, and I think your free agent plan has to address that.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I agree with that. Okay, let's go to now an article that's going to be written. It's actually already written. It's going to be published tomorrow, and this is recorded on Sunday, so it's going to be obviously published on Monday. And that is an article basically saying who was the best backup quarterback in Steelers history. Now, Lance, your history dates further back than mine. You're older than I am. That is not a slight or anything. That's just fact. That's fact. Anyone that listens to the show knows that. And so if you dig back into the old treasure chest of your mind and think about who is the best backup quarterback, before we do that, how would you label a good backup quarterback? Like, what is the criteria for you when you're making this decision?
I think the classic criteria, or the one that I've heard the most, was a quality backup can win you 4 games.
Okay.
But I think I'd pare that down maybe to 2 right now. If a backup quarterback can get you through 2 games, get you 2 wins, anywhere between 2 and 4, that's a quality backup. That's a guy that can salvage and save your season. And
Okay.
as we look at the list, I wanted to make some jokes by like saying Jim Miller, but I don't think anyone likes Jim Miller. It's funny, man. I searched Jim Miller just to see his stats, so I typed in Jim Miller. You're bad as a player when you type in Jim Miller and the UFC fighter comes up. I had to do like Jim Miller, NFL, Steelers. It took like 3 searches to find Jim Miller. I mean, I go back to Bubby Brister, Mark Malone. Mark Malone was probably the most athletic guy, but he wasn't really a backup. He was the starter. He was just a bum. They've had some bums as backups. So I'm going to think the best backup was Charlie Batch. I'm going to go with
Okay.
Pittsburgh's own
What
Steel
about
Valley.
yeah, what was it? What was his first name? Gillum that backed up Terry Bradshaw. He took the starting job at
Yeah.
one point.
Yes, Joe Gillum. Um,
He could throw the football. I've seen some footage of him. That was before
yeah,
my
yeah,
time.
yeah, but I mean, I'm gonna go with C Batch. I mean, anytime you can go to Baltimore on the road when the Ravens were the Ravens
Oh man, what a game.
and go win that game. That game was so epic. Charlie Batch was in my password for my computer for years. For years, Charlie Batch was part of my password in my computer. The hug after that game, when him and Ben just embraced like brothers
Yep.
at the end of that game. Come on, man. Charlie Batch was my guy. Steel Valley High School, Pittsburgh's own. You gotta love Charlie. Charlie Batch. Cholly. Charlie Batch.
It's funny. I'm not going to disagree with that because I think he was probably the best. But some other names to think about. Some people in the live chat right now, if you're watching live on YouTube, you know, Byron Leftwich wasn't bad. I feel like Byron never really got the chance. There's that everyone remembers that the Ravens game on I think it was Sunday Night Football. They were in the Bumblebee jerseys and he ran the football. Remember like 50 some yards and he got hurt as he entered the end zone and that was bad. They ended up losing that game. But Byron Leftwich is one. I Tommy Maddox is another one. People forget that he was a backup
Yeah.
quarterback. He won them a lot of football games. The Tommy Gunn era, people didn't like it, but they won football games.
Tommy
He's
could sling it. Let me ask you, Jeff. My memory is escaping me. Wasn't Tommy the quarterback when they lost? What was that terrible game against Houston when Houston had 75 yards of offense but still beat the Steelers? Was that?
yes, he was
Yes.
the quarterback.
That's
Yes, that was
disqualifying forever. That's
that.
disqualifying.
It was also Tommy Maddox was also the quarterback that came in against the Jaguars. You remember that game at home, and he fumbled the football, and all they had to do is
Yes, those are disqualifying. So you had to take
you're
that guy
bringing
out
up some bad memories, and I immediately regret bringing up Tommy Maddox's
You,
name.
I got to call a spade a spade. He could sling it, but he also sucked.
Dennis Dixon
Yeah,
wasn't awful. He came in the year that Ben was suspended, if you remember, and he
yeah, but
actually
I'm
won a
biased
couple games.
against Dennis Dixon because he went to the University of Oregon, and I hate the Ducks.
Oh, well, then there you go.
I,
Okay.
I
That
hate the
awesome
Ducks.
Pac-12 conference out there.
He was awesome for Oregon, though. He was.
No, he
He
was.
was,
Yeah,
he was
that was
awesome for Oregon.
that was back in the heyday when they were really paying players to go there. So
Yeah, yeah. They still do, not just as much. Inflation, inflationary dollars.
inflation's a mother. So someone says Michael Vick. That's a joke. They're joking. They've got to be joking. That's like saying Brian St. Pierre. No. So
Ron Mexico,
Ronnie Mexico. That's right. Um,
Pablo Guadalajara.
okay. So the next thing I want to talk about Father's Day a little bit because we're both fathers. Lance, you have 3 children, correct?
Correct.
I have 5, as most people know, all under the age of 10. Um,
Oh, whoa. Whoa, whoa.
Yeah, I know. Anyways, not talking about my basketball team currently, but I wrote an article today, and I always bring this up because I think it's a good talking point. It's my letter from the editor article, and today's was about how the brainwashing has been going on for 10 years now. And I live in the state of Maryland, and if you haven't figured it out yet, geographically, the people in Maryland don't tend to get along with people that root for Pittsburgh teams. There's the Ravens, there's the Capitals, obviously big rivals against the Steelers and the Penguins, of which, of course, I root for both of those teams as well. Um, they get a lot of this stuff where my kids are Pittsburgh people because that's all they get. I give them
Right.
new Penguin stuff, new Pirate stuff, Steelers stuff, and they get a lot of harassment from adults in our family and at school, and it's hysterical. But when they say that, "Oh, you sure you don't want to be a Ravens fans?" and my kids, all the response is always the same: "Ew, that's the Ravens stink," and they'll put their thumbs down and stuff. And I very proud moment as a father, and then they'll say, "Oh, you're brainwashing your kids." And I always say the same thing. Well, hell yes, I'm brainwashing my kids. I don't want them growing up and being a Ravens fan. But to me, and to tie this into Father's Day, it comes down to me about um, a bond with the bond that I have with my dad and my brother over Pittsburgh sports. It's something we still follow to this day. We still talk about regularly. We don't do it as much anymore now that I have 5 kids, but it used to be every Thursday.
But you're busy.
Yeah, very busy. Every Thursday, we would call each other and we would talk about the upcoming Steelers game, and it would be like our scouting report, and we would talk about the breakdown and what we think is going to happen, and here's this and here's that, and what about this and what about that, and it's just tremendous. Some of my greatest memories of surrounding my father and my brother are surrounded by Pittsburgh sports. Now, Lance, people call me a brainwasher. Yeah, I'm a brainwasher, but at the same time, I'm also brainwashing my kids to enjoy golf because I love to golf. My dad golfs,
Right,
my family
exactly.
golfs. I don't see a difference there. It's about creating a bond with your kids, but nonetheless, you raised your kids the right way. What is their fanhood in terms of Steelers, and do they buy in? I know that you're a big guy, a big fan of it. So, what do you think?
What for me, it's not a brainwashing. It's just it is what it is. Like it's just there's no way they could avoid it. They don't really like football that much, but they know that they don't root for other teams. Like the only other team that they could possibly root for is their mother's team,
The
which is the San
49ers.
Francisco 49ers, because she is from San Francisco, just like I'm from Pittsburgh. So I give them that, right? We kind of share it at times, but they know what it is. I mean, they know that they can't root for any other team. Like, they just know it's all Pittsburgh.
Right.
It's all Steelers. They know what it is. It's it's not like I had to convince them. They just know what it is. It's Steeler talk all the time. They see me do it. Everybody, all their relatives wear Steeler stuff. They've been to Pittsburgh. They just know what it is. They eat, drink, and breathe it because it's all around them.
Yeah, and I'm entering it, but your kids are older than my kids. I'm entering the age now where my kids are starting to learn things about the teams. They're able to, like, my kids know that Big Ben's number 7, and they know that that's the jersey that I always wear. And my son has 2 jerseys now of his favorite players. His favorite player, that it's the first player that he has ever owned, that he's owned jerseys, but he's never really known the player. His favorite player is James Conner. He loves James Conner. That's all he talks about is James
Nice.
Conner. And he wears his number 30 jersey all over the house. And when we're throwing football in the yard, and he's like, "Dad, you're Big Ben. I'm James Conner." And so I'm like, "All right." James Conner rolls out, doing my Bill Hillgrove impersonation. He throws it deep, and touchdown, and he goes nuts. I'm entering that age where I remember where I was, and it was me, it was Barry Foster. I don't know what it was about Barry Foster. He wasn't even with the team long, but I was number 29 in 7th grade football because of Barry Foster. And I just, it's really cool to experience. And so I wanted to touch on that as Father's Day's here. We both have kids, how we're raising our kids. I call it the right way. But
The
some people,
only way.
it's the only way. That's
It's
right.
not the right. It's not the right way. It's the only way. Is there another way to do it? Like,
Well,
come
yeah.
on, man.
My
Like,
oldest. My oldest daughter asked me one time, Dad, what if I rooted for the Ravens? And I said, well, do you like living in this house? And do you
Who? What? What? Like, huh? I didn't hear you.
I said, do you enjoy eating food? Do you enjoy
Like,
a house, a roof
huh?
over your head?
Like,
I said,
like,
because if
huh? No. Who?
so yeah. So
We
yeah.
don't say that name in the house.
No, no,
We
no, no.
like,
No.
like we don't say that name in the house. Like that's never mentioned. But no, I mean, there's only one way. I'm trying to think. The funny thing about my family is, everybody likes the Steelers. Everybody loves the Steelers. But we 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 love defensive players. So when guys when family members had shirts and jerseys, nobody had offensive guys. We
Really?
all had defensive guys.
See,
It,
I can't
it was
speak for my
straight defense.
family. I can't speak for my family, but for me, I've always leaned, just like on this show, I've always leaned toward offense. And I don't know why, because I like defense. But when I played, I wasn't the type of guy who was going to get his nose and all that stuff. Just give me the football and let me run, you know?
Well, my family is overly aggressive, and with a high penchant of flying out of control and emotionally just snapping during pressure filled football situations. I've seen fights break out, arguments, all types of
Ah,
stuff. So that's the kind of house I grew up in. My family in Manchester watching games. It was like, look, man, shut up or it's on. Like no bragging, like they just laugh. Like, no, that might be a fist fight. You're getting slammed on your head. If you were laughing at the Steelers loss, you need to take that outside and go home and laugh
that might have
because you might get hurt.
that might have been the worst feeling ever. We wouldn't have parties growing up unless it was a playoff party, and if they lost in the playoffs, it was sickening. Like everyone's just there sitting there, and everyone's like, "Ah, this sucks," and people would be like, "Yeah, that's it, we're leaving." And I'll never forget the game against the Browns in the wild card round. I want to say it's 2000, where Tommy Maddox was the quarterback, and they came back, and Chris Fumatu Mafala scored on the screen to win the game. That was against Kelly Holcomb, who
Yes,
threw for over 400
yes.
yards in the snow at Heinz Field. That was 2001. I'm sorry, that was the first year for Heinz Field, I think. And my dad's buddy came over, and we were watching the game, and he had his little cooler of Iron City, and he was sitting there, and he's yelling, screaming. He almost left. He almost left. They were playing that bad. These freaking bums. I can't stand these guys. My dad's like, Russ, you got to stay. You got to stay, Russ. You can't leave. We need you. We need you, man. And he stayed, and all of that. It was a great time. It was a great time.
Hey man, I've seen numerous tables flipped, stuff thrown at people. I mean, I've seen all types of stuff in relatives' house with Steeler losses. Like it's just been just absolutely funny. I had a migraine during that game. I was sitting in my den with a bad migraine, and I remember waking up and watching that epic comeback for them to win that game.
Have you ever broken anything while watching the Steelers game?
No, I've thrown stuff.
What
I've
is
thrown
the most solid item that you've thrown? Is it because pillows don't count? You throw a pillow, it's a pillow, unless you're hitting something.
I've kicked beer stools. I've thrown like like the thing of beer snacks in a bar. Like I've thrown that,
You
and
threw this in a public place?
yeah, like
Oh my god!
yeah, it was bad. It was bad. That was the Patriot game, the 2001 game.
Well, yeah, I would have thrown
I,
something.
I flipped out. I flipped out. Was throwing stuff in the bar. Got a migraine, and I slept like the next 17 hours.
I've never thrown. I've thrown. I remember chucking my phone into the couch one time, and that was it. I do remember after the loss in the playoffs to the Broncos, where we got T-bowed. I went out. My wife, because that was an early game, I think, or it might have been later. I don't know. But my wife said, "Hey, can you take the trash out?" And I was like, "Well, that's fine. I'm pissed off anyway." So I'm walking outside. It's the middle of January. It's freezing cold. And I see that on my mailbox is a Steelers mailbox cover that I was given a couple years back. And now I'm just looking at this thing and it's faded and it's kind of starting to fall off and I'm all pissed off anyways. And I'm like, I'm going to take this freaking thing off right now. I'm gonna rip this thing off and throw it in the freaking trash where it belongs. And I went to rip that thing off, and it was so cold that thing didn't budge. And I thought I ripped my hand open, and I was like, I can't even take the stupid mailbox cover. It stayed on for several more years, and I learned to calm myself down over a game that I have absolutely zero control over. So,
Yeah, I stopped going to sports bars as a result. I mean, the last time I really gone to a sports bar to watch a game, I almost got into a fight with Steeler fans. That's how bad it was. That was the 8 turnover game against the Browns. I almost got into a fight with Steeler fans. So I was like, look, I can't do this. I can't do this anymore. I can't catch a charge.
no,
I'm not getting
no,
paid.
no way.
I
Exactly.
can't do it. I can't be that dumb guy that's on local media fighting with fans from the same team. That's just
Yeah, I can't do it because I remember one year, it was right before I got married. So it was the 2000 and let's do the math here, Jeff. It was the 2007 NFL draft, and I'm at this bar that's also a Steelers bar with my brother. He had just gotten suited for his set up for his tux, and I bought him lunch at this bar, and we're watching it, and I'm listening to these Steeler fans, and they're just yelling and screaming and say, they're it's I don't care if you yell and scream, but they're saying stuff that's so incorrect. And all that, and I just couldn't take it. I said, I'm never going to come back to a bar like this. I'm just going to watch at my house. I get the Sunday ticket. I watch every game. I like to watch with just my family and a few friends if I choose. I kind of like to be alone. And my wife will often take the kids and go to the grocery store during football games so that I can just let me just take it all in. When you come back, everything's over with. Whatever had happened, happened. So there you go. So, all right. Is there anything you else wanted to add? I mean, it's not I haven't had a long show, but I don't think it's not necessary. It's the dog days, man. This is that month off where there's no
I just
football.
want to say happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. All the fathers, deceased fathers, people who've lost their father. Happy Father's Day to those guys. Happy Father's Day just to all the fathers out there that's being fathers and being dads and being positive role models. And also a happy Father's Day to guys who are being positive role models and dads for people whose dads aren't stepping up. So happy
Yeah,
Father's Day to those guys, to the uncles, to the stepdads, to the really close friends, to the the extended family dads, to all those guys, to all the men out there that are providing positive role models for kids and for people out there and making a difference. So kudos to all you guys.
absolutely. Happy Father's Day. I couldn't have said it any better myself. I will say this, and if you listened to our show I guess it was I was actually on my Burning Question show. Lance knows this because I texted him this, and I said it, and I'll say it again. Out of all the SB Nation podcasts, NBA, MLB, NHL, NFL, mixed martial arts, we were seventh out of all of them. And there's a lot of them. There's 32 NFL podcasts alone, and we're seventh out of all of the sports. And so I want to thank the listeners first and foremost for just listening, being a part of it. But if we want to get higher, we want to be better. And so the one thing is that not only share it, because if you're listening to this, I guarantee you know someone else that's a Steelers fan and just say, hey, man, have you ever checked out this podcast? They do 5 shows a week. And it doesn't have to be on YouTube. If they like to just listen to an audio platform, just, hey, anywhere you get your podcast, just search The Standard is the Standard, Behind the Steel Curtain, Steelers, you'll find us. And, we want to get to number one. We want to put out the best content. If you have a suggestion for something that, hey, I think this would be pretty cool, shoot me an email. My email's all over behindthesteelcurtain.com. Find an article that I wrote, click on my name underneath the article, and you'll get all the information you need. Send me an email and give me an idea, and we'll see what we can do. We're already working on some interviews during this time off. Trying to pull some strings. I know we're definitely going to have Chris Carter on the show at some point to talk about the Steelers in the upcoming season. But if you have ideas that you think would be cool content, I'm never one to just shun it. I'll listen and we'll see what happens. But you know what? We want to be higher. 7's great. We're going to get 7 this year, but we want to be higher. Let's get to number 1. That's our goal. So we'll still be here even in the off season, no matter what, rain or shine, no off days for us. So thank you very much for listening. Lance, thank you for your time. Why don't you send us off?
Remember, tune in, tell a friend, and subscribe.
Amen, brother. We'll see you next week for another episode of The Standard is the Standard.